The morning sun stretched over Denver like a warm blanket, casting long golden beams across the polished marble floor of the FBI field office. Inside, the rhythm of another day had just begun. Agents swiping badges, security checks humming, keyboards clacking. Special Agent Lauren Maddox stood by the espresso machine, her eyes not quite focused on her coffee, her mind somewhere else. The feeling had returned, that quiet knot in her gut. It wasn't fear, not quite dread either. It was the same sense she'd felt 14 years ago on a case that still haunted her, when a little boy vanished from a summer camp in Montana. They hadn't found him in time. She never forgot his name. She took her coffee, black, strong, and unfinished. Her phone buzzed before the first sip. A building-wide alert had been triggered. Not fire, not bomb, something else. Security breach. Lauren turned on instinct, weaving through the bullpen just as Officer Damian Cruz came running down the corridor toward her. His face, usually stone calm, was flushed, panicked. "Lauren," he barked, out of breath. "You need to see this. Now." By the time the elevator doors opened onto the main lobby, she could feel it in her bones. Whatever this was, it didn't fit any protocol she knew. And she knew them all. Then she saw it. In the center of the lobby stood a massive German shepherd. Not just standing, sitting in rigid attention, body stone still, eyes scanning every person like he was ranking threats. Draped over his broad back was a child, a girl, barefoot, blonde, unconscious. Blood streaked down her legs. "Jesus," Lauren muttered. Agents instinctively surrounded the dog but kept a distance, unsure if it was a threat. But it wasn't growling, barking, or panicking. It was guarding. Lauren stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. Who let it in? Damian swallowed hard. He came through 3 checkpoints. Cameras showed doors unlocking ahead of him like he had clearance. Only what? She snapped. Damian leaned in. Only I recognized him. That's Briscoe. We were in Kandahar together. He saved my life. But he retired over a year ago. Last I heard, he was placed with a non-profit. Lauren turned back to the dog. Briscoe. That explained the posture, the vigilance. He wasn't lost. He was on a mission. Slowly, Lauren approached. "Easy, buddy," she said softly. "You brought her here for a reason, didn't you?" Briscoe's ears twitched. He didn't move otherwise. The child lay motionless, her head resting against his neck. Lauren knelt down. The smell hit her first, blood and antiseptic. She gently brushed the girl's hair aside and froze. Her legs bore fresh surgical incisions. Not random wounds, clean cuts, neat lines. On her hip, a small puncture from an IV. Her wrists showed faint bruises, symmetrical. Restraints. "This wasn't an accident," Lauren muttered. "Get medical, now. Trauma team, not just EMTs. And I want forensics to swab the dog's vest." Paramedics rushed in with a gurney, and Briscoe let out a low, warning growl. Not a threat, but a statement. Be careful. One medic reached for the oxygen mask, and Briscoe nudged his hand away, then looked directly at the mask as if assessing it. "That's not normal behavior," said a voice behind Lauren. Dr. Grace Lindholm, the Bureau's pediatric trauma specialist, stepped forward, kneeling beside the girl. "That dog's been trained for field medical response. Watch how he adjusts his body. He's giving us space, but staying in her line of sight." As Grace examined the girl, her face darkened. "These are prep cuts. Organ preparation within the last 24 hours. She was sedated. They didn't finish what they started." Lauren stood, her stomach in knots. They were going to harvest her. A murmur swept the room. Even seasoned agents stiffened. Lauren looked down at Briscoe. "You knew. You got her out." Just then, the girl stirred. Her fingers twitched, her eyelids fluttered. Briscoe let out a soft whine. Grace leaned close. "Sweetheart, can you hear me? You're safe. You're at the FBI. No one's going to hurt you." The girl's eyes opened slowly, cloudy, blinking. She looked around, confused, until her gaze landed on the German shepherd. Something shifted in her face. She lifted a weak hand and brushed it against his head. "Briscoe," she whispered. Lauren felt chills dance up her arms. "You know him?" she asked gently. The girl nodded, barely. Then her lips parted again. "They took him first. They made him carry us. But he wouldn't. Not after what?" Lauren pressed. The girl's voice grew clearer. "He saw what they did. He wouldn't let them use him." A silence fell. Even Grace blinked hard. Suddenly, a man in a Navy FBI windbreaker entered the medical wing. Agent Royce Hale, one of the senior field agents. As he stepped into the room, Briscoe's posture changed in an instant. His ears shot forward. His body tensed. A deep, guttural growl rumbled from his chest. Everyone froze. Royce stopped mid-step. What the hell's his problem? But Lauren was already between him and the dog. "Step back," she ordered quietly. Briscoe's hackles were raised, but his eyes didn't show fear. They showed recognition. Lauren looked at the child. Her face had turned pale again, her eyes locked on Royce. Then she whispered, barely audible, "He was there." Briscoe's growl deepened, and Lauren, without saying a word, reached for her sidearm. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the corridor as Agent Lauren Maddox stood outside the medical wing, her arms crossed tightly. Through the glass, she watched Emily Kane sit upright in bed, awake, alert, and eerily composed for a 10-year-old who'd escaped what could only be described as a living nightmare. In her lap was a sketch pad. Briscoe lay beside her, his body still, ears perked, his head lightly pressed to the girl's thigh. He hadn't left her side once. "She asked for the markers herself?" Lauren asked. Dr. Grace Lindholm nodded from beside her. "And the sketch pad. Said she could show us where they kept the others. This isn't just memory. It's survival instinct." Inside the room, Emily's small hands moved steadily across the paper. She drew sharp angles, heavy doors, a hallway lined with red lights. There was a table, rectangular, with belts. A cabinet labeled meds. No hesitation. She had seen these things. Lauren stepped into the room slowly, her tone soft. "Emily, can I sit?" The girl nodded. Lauren lowered herself into the chair across from the bed and looked down at the drawing. "This is where they kept you?" Emily nodded again, tapping her marker on the far corner of the sketch. "Here. The room with the blue light. That's where they brought the kids after the needles." Briscoe let out a low, almost inaudible whine. He pressed his nose to her arm. "They said it was medicine," Emily said quietly, "but it made us sleepy. We couldn't scream after that." Lauren kept her voice even. "Do you remember how many other children were there?" "2 for sure, a boy younger than me, and a girl with curly hair. I think she was 8. She glanced up. "But I don't think they were all in the same room. I heard crying from the other side." Lauren nodded slowly. "And Briscoe, when did he come in?" Emily's expression shifted, her voice lowering. "They brought him in after 3 days, said he was going to help move us." "Did he?" "No." Emily looked down at the dog and smiled faintly. "He wouldn't touch us. He just sat in the corner and watched, like he was waiting." Lauren swallowed. "Waiting for what?" Emily paused, then said, "For the right time." Briscoe's ears flicked, sensing the shift in the room's energy. He pressed closer to Emily. Then one night, she continued, there was yelling. Loud noises, like metal dropping. Someone screamed. Briscoe got up, came over, and bit through the strap on my wrist. He dragged me out. Lauren's earpiece crackled. Agent Maddox, Cyberlab needs you. Priority. She stood. Emily, I'll be right back. Can I borrow your drawing? Emily handed it over. Take care of it. Downstairs, the lights in the cyber division glowed brighter than usual. Kayla Vaughn spun her chair around the moment Lauren entered. I hope you're sitting down, Kayla said, tapping on a keyboard. I traced the shell nonprofit that supposedly rehomed Briscoe. Pride Paw? It's a front. They filed articles of incorporation, ran a website for 5 months, then vanished. No adoption records, no board members, nothing. Lauren narrowed her eyes. So, how'd Briscoe end up with them? Kayla smirked grimly. That's the part you'll love. Monthly financial transfers kept their account alive. Guess whose name is attached to those transactions? She clicked a final key. Royce Hale. Lauren felt the breath leave her chest. Kayla continued. And that's not all. I pulled internal network logs. At 3:11 a.m. this morning, someone from the 6th floor secure terminal sent an encrypted message to an anonymous server. Took me a while to decode, but she brought the message on screen. To echoshift@protonmail.com, dog active, girl secure, retrieve asset before exposure. Lauren blinked hard. Asset, that's how they refer to her? Kayla nodded grimly. And this went out 2 hours before we found her. A cold chill ran through Lauren. Where's Hale now? Left the building at 5:17 a.m. No return pings, he's off the grid. Lauren's voice dropped an octave. He was watching the whole time. Kayla clicked again. And there's more. I ran Emily's drawing through visual recognition. One of the logos on a cabinet matches a supply company, Varnum Logistics. They lease a facility on the south side of the city, supposedly for frozen food shipments. Lauren leaned in. And no shipments, no delivery logs, but power usage is off the charts for a cold storage business. Lauren stood. That's our location. Back in the medical wing, Emily had fallen asleep. Briscoe curled protectively against her. His breathing was steady but vigilant. Lauren entered quietly and knelt beside him. You knew something was off with Hale, didn't you? She whispered. Briscoe turned his head toward her. The look in his amber eyes was sharp, focused. You weren't just being loyal, Lauren continued. You were remembering. She stood slowly, gaze falling on Emily. Even in sleep, her hand remained buried in Briscoe's fur. They were connected now, bound by a trauma few could understand, but also by a choice. A dog who refused to obey evil, and a child who refused to give up. At 10:07 p.m., Lauren filed the warrant for Varnum Logistics. Tactical briefing began at midnight, and somewhere in the shadows of the city, Royce Hale was already preparing to disappear. The black SUV rolled to a stop at the corner of Brighton Avenue and South Gleason, just outside the industrial zone on Denver's south side. Cold steel warehouses loomed in the early morning mist, their windows dark, their exteriors anonymous. It was the kind of place no one noticed unless they had a reason to be there. Inside the vehicle, Agent Lauren Maddox reviewed the satellite layout on her tablet. That's the facility, she said, pointing to a long rectangular building tucked between a packaging plant and an old produce depot. Varnum Logistics. No registered deliveries in over a month. Power consumption suggests cold storage units underground. Detective Jonah Blake sat in the driver's seat, watching the road behind them through the rearview mirror. You think Hale's still inside? If he's smart, he's not, Lauren said. But whoever's running this operation isn't going to abandon product. In the back seat, Emily's drawing sat clipped to the back of the headrest, a reminder of what they were walking into. On the floor beside it, Briscoe stirred. His breathing had been steady until they passed the final intersection. Now, his ears were pinned, his nose twitching. "He recognizes it," Lauren said. "He remembers the scent." Jonah nodded. "It's go time." They weren't 2 blocks away from the warehouse when it happened. A dark, gray van came out of nowhere, speeding through the opposite lane and slamming into the side of their SUV at the intersection. The force of impact threw Lauren into the side window. Glass shattered. Tires screeched. The world tilted. Briscoe barked sharply, then lunged across the seat to shield Emily. Gunfire erupted. Automatic, short bursts, targeted. Jonah yelled, reversing the vehicle just as another round struck the rear quarter panel. Lauren blinked away blood from her brow and yanked her Glock from its holster. They knew we were coming. The van skidded and spun. 2 masked men jumped out, but before they could reach the SUV, Briscoe was already airborne. He hit one of them full force in the chest, knocking the man to the ground with a feral snarl. "Emily, stay down!" Lauren shouted, firing 2 rounds that struck the pavement inches from the second man's boots. He dove for cover, disappearing behind a stack of steel drums. The first attacker screamed as Briscoe's jaws clamped around his arm, wrenching the rifle away. Jonah tackled the second from behind, and after a few furious seconds both were restrained. Breathing hard, Lauren crouched beside Briscoe. Blood trickled from his left side. "Briscoe, no, stay with me," she murmured. The wound wasn't deep, but it was enough to slow him down. His side heaved, his ears drooped, but his eyes stayed locked on Emily, who now peeked up from behind the console, shaken but unharmed. "They knew we were coming," Jonah said, zip-tying one of the attackers. "Someone's still feeding them intel." Lauren stood, wiping her face. "That confirms it. We move now, before they disappear again." She turned to Emily. "You okay?" The girl nodded, pale but determined. "I can help. I know the outside, the alley. I remember the smell of the stairs going down." Lauren hesitated. "Emily." But the girl stood her ground. "You said I was brave. Let me help." 10 minutes later, after backup arrived to process the scene and extract the attackers, a second SUV moved in. Lauren, Jonah, Briscoe, bandaged but refusing to stay behind, and a 6-man tactical team rolled toward the warehouse under the cover of dawn. The building looked empty. Too empty. Lauren and Jonah led the team around the back, past rows of dumpsters. There, just like Emily had described, was a steel door with a worn keypad and a faded decal. Varnum Logistics. Staff entry only. The lock was newer than the rest of the building. One of the tactical agents moved forward with a breach tool, but before he could engage, Briscoe growled low and turned to the left. His paw nudged a plastic crate. Inside it, barely visible, was a tripwire connected to a homemade explosive, rigged to detonate when the door opened. "Trap," Jonah muttered. "They expected us." Briscoe stepped back, limping slightly. Lauren made a decision in that instant. "Get the squad ready to go through the west side. Quiet entry. Briscoe's going to help us find another way." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "He's wounded." "He's still more reliable than half our tech." With Briscoe leading carefully, they found an old maintenance hatch hidden behind a discarded freezer unit. The team pried it open and dropped into darkness. The basement reeked of bleach and antiseptic. Flickering fluorescent lights revealed a corridor of stainless steel and concrete. And voices. Lauren raised her hand, signaling silence. She pushed forward until they reached a hallway lined with rooms. One was open. 2 children, a boy and a girl, both heavily sedated, both strapped to gurneys, prepped the same way Emily had been. Across the room stood a man in a surgical gown, face obscured by a medical mask. His gloved hands trembled as he reached for a scalpel. Lauren raised her weapon. "FBI, step away." The man froze. The scalpel clattered to the floor. Behind them, Briscoe growled, but his body sagged, legs shaking. He was losing blood. "No," Lauren whispered, running to his side as the team swarmed the room. "Stay with me, Briscoe, stay with me." Emily's voice echoed from the stairwell as she ran in with Grace and another medic behind her. "He saved them, just like he saved me." Lauren looked down at the dog who had chosen loyalty over obedience, protection over survival. "Hold on, soldier," she whispered. "This mission isn't over yet." The stale, metallic scent of blood lingered in the air as the FBI team crept deeper into the hidden facility beneath the rundown diner. The supposed meat freezer had led them into a labyrinth of cold steel corridors where every step echoed with tension. Lauren Maddox led the way, her weapon drawn, eyes scanning each corner like a hawk. Jonah Blake was at her flank, his jaw clenched. Behind them, Kayla guided Emily carefully, the girl refusing to be left behind. Briscoe limped beside Lauren, wounded but unwilling to stay back. He wasn't just following orders. He had a mission, and until it was done, pain meant nothing. "Thermal shows movement in the next corridor," Jonah whispered, checking his device. "1 heat signature, standing still." Lauren nodded. "Let's move." They rounded the corner and came face to face with Dr. Marcus Harlan. His white coat was stained, his hands gloved, and in one of them a thumb drive gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Behind him, a heavy security door stood ajar. "I was wondering when you'd show up," Harlan said coolly, "though I admit I expected the dog to be dead by now." Lauren kept her gun raised. "Put the drive down and step away from the door. You don't get it, do you?" Harlan's smile widened. "This isn't just about me. This is about evolution, precision. We're building something stronger, faster, smarter." Jonah stepped forward. "By torturing children? By unlocking potential." With a flick of his hand, Harlan tossed the drive toward Lauren. She caught it reflexively, just as he turned and bolted through the door. They gave chase. The hallway twisted into a long medical wing. Observation rooms lined the side, some still occupied. Children, thin, frightened, dazed, stared from behind glass, their faces blank. "This is worse than we thought," Lauren muttered. "He wasn't selling them, he was training them. Programming them," Jonah added, "like dogs." They burst into the surgical wing. There, strapped to an operating table, lay a boy no older than 10. His eyes fluttered open, then filled with terror at the sight of Briscoe. "No," the boy screamed. "Don't hurt me again." Briscoe stopped cold. His body trembled. He took one slow step forward, then another. His tail didn't wag. His ears dropped. He let out a soft, low whine. Recognition. Lauren glanced at Jonah. He's seen this kid before. Before they could react, a monitor flickered on. Harlan appeared on the screen, standing in a control room above them. "You don't see it yet, do you? This was never about money. This was about proving it could be done." "We've got enough to bury you," Lauren said, aiming at the camera. Harlan's voice grew darker. "You'll never get out of here alive. Royce Hale was only the first. There are others, watching everything you do." Behind Lauren, Emily had slipped away. She and Kayla found a side room filled with file cabinets. The girl ran her fingers across the drawers, stopping at one labeled Project Helix. "I found it," Emily whispered. Inside were photos, logs, names, children, dogs, soldiers. Briscoe's name was there, next to a boy from Kabul, the one he couldn't save. "Kayla," Emily said, voice quivering. "This isn't just about now. They've been doing this for years." Suddenly, the door slammed shut. Gas hissed through the vents. "Trap!" Jonah shouted. "Fall back!" But Briscoe didn't run. He bolted toward a side corridor where the gas hadn't reached yet, and Lauren followed. At the end of the hallway, Harlan waited. No more cameras, no more words, just him and a scalpel. Lauren raised her weapon. "Don't." "You think I'm the monster?" he sneered. "But your agency signed off on every funding line. You want justice? Clean your own house first." Emily appeared from the shadows, stepping in front of Lauren. "You told me no one would come," she said, eyes fixed on Harlan. "But Briscoe did," he remembered. Something flickered across Harlan's face. Fear, maybe. Then he lunged. Briscoe struck first. The impact knocked the scalpel loose. The dog clamped onto Harlan's wrist, dragging him down. Lauren kicked the weapon away and cuffed the doctor as he screamed. "It's over," she said, breathless. Blood smeared across the white floors. The boy on the operating table sobbed with relief. Later, as the medics tended to the children and the facility was secured, Jonah turned to Lauren. "We got him." Lauren glanced down at Briscoe, who stood beside her, exhausted, wounded, but standing. Emily knelt and hugged him. "You're not just a soldier," she whispered. "You're my friend." As the agents secured the children and swept the facility, Lauren stood in the operating room, staring at the ceiling. Every panel, every monitor, every cable was part of something far more insidious than she'd imagined. Jonah walked in, holding the sealed Project Helix files. Kayla found hard drives too, enough to implicate half a dozen names inside the bureau, he said quietly, including one assistant deputy director. Lauren didn't flinch. "We take it all, no more silence." Kayla helped Emily sit on a gurney in the hallway. The girl was pale but steady. She held a photograph taken from the file. Briscoe, younger, beside a boy in desert fatigues. "He couldn't save the boy," she whispered, stroking the dog's head. "But he saved me." Briscoe didn't move, but his eyes followed every word. "He remembers everything. That's what they didn't understand," Emily continued. "He wasn't broken. He was grieving." From the far corridor, a tech shouted, "We found a server room. Live feed, encrypted data. Looks like multiple centers." Lauren's stomach dropped. "How many?" "At least 3, different states." Jonah cursed under his breath. "It's not over." Lauren looked to Emily, then Briscoe. "But it started." Outside, sirens wailed. Media vans were already crowding the block. The story would break wide, and it would hurt. But maybe it needed to. Briscoe nudged Emily's hand gently. She smiled for the first time in days. "When systems fail," Lauren said softly, watching them, "hearts must not." And somewhere deep inside, Briscoe's tail gave a single, quiet wag. The mission wasn't done, but the fight had truly begun. 3 months later, the sun rose over Quantico, painting the skies in hues of fire and gold. A gentle breeze swept over the lawn of the FBI Academy, where a ceremony was about to begin. Rows of chairs were lined up before a modest podium, and beyond that, a gleaming bronze statue stood. A dog in mid-stride, jaw set, eyes forward. It was Briscoe. Lauren Maddox stood at the edge of the crowd, wearing a tailored navy suit, her badge clipped to her belt. A scar now traced the side of her arm, a reminder of the raid in Denver, but her eyes were clearer, steadier. A hush fell as Director Pennington approached the podium. "Today," she began, "we honor not only an agent but a symbol of resilience. Briscoe, a retired military K-9, went beyond the call of duty, not just saving lives but exposing a network that hid in plain sight. Because of him, and because of a brave girl named Emily Kane, justice is now moving forward. Applause broke out. In the front row, Emily sat in a blue dress, her legs crossed neatly beneath her. A silver locket shimmered at her neck. Inside was a photo of Briscoe and the boy he once served with in Afghanistan. She touched it as Briscoe, now fitted with a custom prosthetic leg, stood beside her, alert and calm. After the ceremony, the crowd walked to the newly christened Briscoe Rehabilitation Wing at the Juvenile Recovery Center just outside of town. It was a quiet, modern place, built for healing, not interrogation. Inside, rooms were decorated with murals of animals and open skies. Laughter rang from down the hall. Briscoe, now trained as a therapy dog, walked slowly alongside Emily as she led a group of children through their first orientation. "This is Briscoe," Emily said softly to a boy with bruises beneath his eyes. "He's here to help you feel safe. He doesn't care where you came from. He just cares that you're still here." The boy blinked, and then, slowly, reached out. Briscoe nuzzled his hand. The program, now officially named Shield and Paw, was funded by federal grants, private donors, and a surprising source. Kayla Vaughn had exposed encrypted off-the-books accounts tied to the trafficking ring. The recovered money was repurposed, justice, finally redirecting its flow. Lauren met Emily outside the wing later that day. "You're doing good work," Lauren said. Emily smiled. "He's doing most of it. I'm proud of you." Emily's eyes didn't waver. "I want to help train the new dogs, and maybe be an agent one day." Lauren knelt beside her. "You already are, in a way." After the ceremony, media outlets buzzed with headlines like "Retired War Dog Uncovers Human Trafficking Ring" and "10-year-old Survivor Launches National Healing Program." But for those involved, it wasn't about headlines. That afternoon, in a closed-door meeting with the Bureau's Ethics Division, Lauren laid out everything. The failures, the blind eyes, the system cracks. She didn't hold back. "They trusted us," she said, "and we failed them. But Briscoe didn't." One of the board members nodded slowly. "We need reforms, oversight, more than press conferences." Lauren handed over a proposal Emily helped draft. Guidelines for trauma-sensitive investigation techniques, mandatory K-9 emotional support deployment, and protections for juvenile witnesses. Meanwhile, at the recovery center, Emily sat on a bench next to Kayla Vaughn. "You did it," Kayla said. "You turned all that pain into something powerful." Emily looked out the window. "It still hurts, but now I get to choose what I do with it." Briscoe was lying nearby, half dozing but twitching now and then, as if chasing ghosts in his dreams. Emily reached over and gently touched his ear. "You remember everything, don't you?" she whispered. Lauren joined them, holding a folder. "The new recruits for Shield and Paw start next week. We could use someone to help lead the orientation." Emily grinned. "Only if Briscoe's the one running the drills." That evening, as the center quieted, Jonah Blake arrived with a visitor. Another child survivor from one of the other dismantled facilities. The boy hadn't spoken in weeks. Briscoe limped toward him, sat down, and simply waited. The boy stared, then kneeled. One small hand reached out. Touch. And just like that, something shifted. Jonah turned to Lauren. "How do you measure justice like that?" Lauren replied. "You don't. You protect it." In the final days of summer, the facility held an open house. Families, therapists, and law enforcement came together. Briscoe wore a new vest, dark blue with a silver patch, Therapy K9, honorary agent. During a Q&A panel, a reporter asked Emily, "If you could say one thing to the people who tried to hurt you, what would it be?" She paused, then answered, clear and calm. "You were wrong about everything, especially him." She placed a hand on Briscoe's back. "They said he was broken, he just needed someone to believe in him." A standing ovation followed. That night, as the stars blinked above and the world slept a little easier, Emily sat beneath the oak tree again, Briscoe beside her. "You didn't save me just once," she said quietly. "You keep saving me. Every day." Briscoe looked up, nose twitching toward the wind, and for a moment it was as if the whole world stilled to listen, to the silence between them, where pain had become purpose, where a war dog had become a guardian, where justice found not a gavel, but a paw print.